settled. So welcome everyone. Really warm welcome to this alumni breakfast. For those of you not in London, it's beautifully sunshiny here today. So I'm sure any of you who have spent some time in London will know how much we appreciate it when the sun comes out. So you join us on a lovely day. Obviously, we're not in Bush House, sadly, but we will all be back there at some point soon, which will be nice. So very brief introduction. My name is Kate Forman. I'm the head of executive program development at the business schools. So I'll probably talk to you a little bit at the end. We're building up what we're doing for executives and really hope that you guys might want to engage in some of that in the future as well as you further your careers. Louisa Pasculi from the alumni team is also here, and I'm sure many of you already know her, and thanks to her because she set up this fantastic event. But the main and most important part to introduce you to is Dr Anna Dubiel, who is going to lead the session today, and she's got some fantastic stuff to talk to you about. So very brief bits of housekeeping. The webinar is going to be about a 20-minute presentation, and then we've got plenty of time for Q&A, about 25 minutes. So what we're going to ask you to do is put your questions into the Q&A box. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll find that there. And you'll be able to put them in there. Put them in at any time. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation, but if something piques your interest, please do type. Make sure we answer questions, as many as we can at the end. And also just to let you know that this will be recorded. So if you want to rewatch it, or if someone couldn't make it today, then we will also be putting it onto the King's Business School YouTube channel under the alumni playlist. So you'll be able to watch that again if you would like to. So our guest today is Dr Anna Dubiel, who's a lecturer in marketing at King's Business School. Some of you may know her already. Anna graduated, my German here, Anna, may not be as good as yours, so you can correct me later, from the University of Erlangen-Nuremberg, where she did an MSc in business administration. And prior to joining King's, she was an assistant professor at WHU Otto Beisheim School of Management. So she also did her PhD there as well. But importantly for today, her expertise includes innovation and R&D management, especially internationally. So that's kind of the theme, I think, of what she's going to be talking to you about today. And I know she's got some cool stuff to show you. She's obviously, like everyone at King's, wonderful. She's been published in the Journal of Product Innovation Management, and she's also contributed to volumes of Product Development and Management Association. And she's co-authored publications, as you would expect, and has been named as a highly commended paper winner in the Journal of Indian Business Research, as well as being a finalist for the Thomas Huster Best Paper Award. So lots and lots of great stuff to tell you, and couldn't have more of an expert for today. So I understand today she's going to be talking to us about new product development, particularly in the digital era, and she'll be sharing a bit more about that with you today. And she's got some really fun examples to show you. So as I said, we'll move on to the presentation. Please do put your questions into the box. The Q&A box is at the bottom of the screen, and you will be able to see other people's questions as well. So you'll be able to see if someone has asked something similar, and we'll make sure we get to those. If we can't answer all of your questions, I do apologise, but you can upvote someone's questions. So if you like someone else's, do please indicate that, and we'll make sure that we speak to the most popular questions so that we understand kind of what you're looking for. And we'll put those to Anna after she's done her initial presentation. So please join me in giving her a warm welcome. And Anna, I will pass over to you.
Thank you very much, Kate, for this flattering introduction. And now I just have to live up to the expectations that you raised. I will obviously do my very best. A very, very good morning to everyone. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining. And indeed, I will be talking about my professional hobby, so to speak, which is new product development. And this will be in the digital context. Let me share my screen first. And it will be the first digital thing we do together today. Let's have a try.
That looks good.
Looks good? Good.
Yeah, we're where we're supposed to be. Thank you.
Good. So let's have a joint start. I'm sorry for this interruption. Usually digital things sometimes don't, or not usually, sometimes they don't work. So new product development in the digital age. And I thought about saying something about me first, so you know with whom you are dealing today, beyond what Kate already said. and then move on to, in a nutshell, explain what new product development is, if I may say it that way, and move on to a hopefully colorful and entertaining medley of examples on how to digitalize different parts of the new product development process. In the end, a sneak peek into my newest research project. And that should actually be within the roughly 20 minutes that we have agreed upon. So beyond what Kate said about me, maybe three things or three small pictures. I'm indeed German, as you probably guessed from my background, and the city where I spend most time is Frankfurt. Most people know it obviously from the airport, but I can assure you that it is much more than the airport alone. As I indicated, my professional hobby are new products, but even in a more specific context, and these are emerging markets. And emerging markets are those that tend to have market segments that may not exist in Western Europe or North America so often, and usually have just fledgling institutions. And finally, when I'm not doing research, I do like to read crime books. So this is another hobby of mine. Let's now move on to explaining new product development, or in other words, innovation management. Some of you might be familiar with it already, either from university or potentially also from your work. But for all those of you who are new to the topic, 2-3 things about it that will help across the remainder of this lecture. So first of all, let us clarify what new products are. And I guess every one of us would think of something different, especially when we talk about the degree of newness. So what does qualify as a new product? There are lots of examples, I guess, that we would be collecting if I would ask around, and we would be really sitting or standing in a physical space, and you would have the option to answer. But usually we would agree that there is a certain span or a certain continuum from something that is more innovative to something that is less innovative. And just 2 examples for the more innovative, maybe the more obvious in these days, a vaccine against COVID-19. I guess most of us would agree it's a really new product, new to the world for a new disease. But what about something that might not be as new as a new vaccine for a new disease? Let's say green ketchup. Yeah. It really existed. I'm not sure if it is still on sale, but it was introduced in the US a couple of years ago, and we could discuss, ketchup that still exists or already existed. It is made of tomatoes. This is nothing new. It is bottled in the traditional bottle of that particular company. So where is the newness? One could potentially argue the green color, or the new target audience being just children. So to sum up, new products can be different. For the sake of this presentation and the sake of the research I'm doing, these are usually new products or services. I don't differentiate between the state of the product, so to speak, that are new to the firm. And the fact that it's new to the firm is so-called enough in order to call it a new product. Now, how do new products come about? And some of you, again, might be familiar with that. For some of you, that might be something new. So usually there is a process. Most companies do follow some agreed upon steps. So it is not so serendipitous. It is not necessarily the strike of the genius that we sometimes think or hope that it will take place. It is more of a kind of predefined process with 3 stages. For the sake of simplicity, we have a first stage, which is concept development, where we basically think about the ideas for the new products. Then we develop concepts, so mixtures of form, need, and technology, and may test it with different stakeholders in order to choose some concepts for further development. Next, stage 2 comes, which is usually the product development. And if we have a physical product, then we would have also a physical prototype or some form of physical prototype. And we can also test this prototype with different stakeholders, think about the marketing plan, and move to manufacturing. Finally, let's call it maybe the more marketing stage, or most of you might consider it to be the more marketing stage, which is the launch stage. And this is about price setting, about promotion, about distributing a product. That would be it with the short introduction on new product development. And now I would move on with some examples on how to digitalize it. And I have mentioned the process first because I would follow it in the next couple of slides, showing you some examples, hopefully entertaining and convincing ones, on how you could digitalize each of those stages. So first things first, let's go for the concept development. And an example here would be something called ethnography that you could apply in the concept development stage. And I guess most of you already guess what it is or know what it is. Net and ethnography, it is a merger of web, network, and ethnography. So I'm after observing customers in the internet, if I may put it like this. They might know that they are being observed, or sometimes they don't know it because obviously they leave different traces, for instance, on social media and blogs or vlogs. And I would also like to showcase a specific example. And this is a deodorant or anti-transpirant of a brand called Nivea. Maybe you have come across it in a drugstore. It's relatively popular. And it's also interesting for someone deep diving into new product development if we look behind the stage on how this product came about, because it was very successful or is very successful. And they used, so the company, the brand used ethnography basically in order to find out about the need for such an anti-transpirant. They wanted to find out what bothers potential clients. Is it, for instance, the length of protection, or is it, for instance, stains on clothes or something else? And basically, they first kind of thought, okay, what we would like to look at. Especially the R&D manager responsible for it had some first ideas, and that went in the direction of stains that some anti-transpirants may leave on our clothes. And he wanted to know, basically, is it only his problem? Maybe he's washing his clothes somehow wrongly, or is it something bothering enough other people outside there? So there would be a market. So he basically looked at different types of communities online, starting from bodybuilding towards wedding planning, where you may think, okay, a good anti-transpirant may play a crucial role. And with the help of a marketing agency, they started to observe those communities on the web, what they were talking about, what bothered them, what solutions do they had for the potential problem bothering them. And they were gathering the data. Obviously, this is the digital aspect of it too. Qualitative analysis of that, trying to identify different consumer insights and also trying to make sense of all this data for new product development. In that case, it was the outcome that, yes, there is a huge market for this, and people are indeed considering those stains on clothes, black or white, as a problem. They are proposing different solutions, and it is a worthwhile endeavor for the company to continue developing a product. Let's now move on to the next stage, which is product development, and I prepared 3D printing to illustrate it. Some of you may have experienced that. So basically what it is a manufacturing device. It may look like a photocopier, and it's turning digital designs, files, CAD files, computer-added design files into physical goods. by layering thin slices of material in an additive process. So I also found this nice quotation. It is the materialization of digital information. So you had a file, and now, I mean, a little bit miraculously, you have a prototype or an object. A prototype, because you can do it very fast, and speed is important in your product development, and also costs are important. So you may consider doing it, for instance, with plastics instead of maybe the final makeup of the product, which could be metal or something else. You could also use it for approaching niche markets, and this will be also my example, and customization. And again, you're driving down costs with the help of this digital solution. The illustration is a British company. It is called Open Bionics, and it is active in the prosthetics business, so medical equipment. And they are using 3D printing indeed to make arm prosthetics. And the very kind of unusual new thing about it is, as you can see on the photo, that they are highly customized, also for kind of superhero look, if I may put it like this. And they are also using different type of designs, I think from Marvel or Disney, and I guess especially for children. This is making it a little bit easier, hopefully a little bit easier to deal with it when they have such superpowers. Helping them. And in illustration here is McDonald's and its German subsidiary. A couple of years ago, the whole country went simply crazy because there has been a contest about designing your own burger. And you can say, okay, burger, this is probably not very digital. So how can you merge a digital environment to develop something so physical? Like a burger into which you can bite afterwards. So in a nutshell, how it worked, you had a toolkit online, and you could obviously use it in order to assemble different type of ingredients. And that was also one of the kind of important things to keep in mind here, that McDonald's predefined a certain amount of ingredients that you could use, so that probably these were ingredients they could buy, wanted to buy, they weren't too costly, they would probably match the idea of a burger, and probably also prevented, and let's say, funny people from adding ingredients that kind of couldn't be eaten, or maybe even would have been disgusting. This is where it didn't stop, because you had to create the burger. Then you had to create some form of advertisement for your creation and market it to the community. The community could vote. I think the couple of most voted burgers were then tested in a kind of trial kitchen of McDonald's. And this is where also the digital and the physical merged, if I may put it that way. It was live broadcasted or screened through Facebook, I think, at that time, with some German kind of influencers or TV moderators. And finally, the jury has chosen 3 or 4 burgers that won. And again, the people who created them were part of the whole advertising campaign. And the burgers were sold for a couple of weeks through all McDonald's outlets in Germany. A huge, huge thing, merging something like a physical burger, where potentially we may think, okay, a burger is a burger, with a digital environment. And finally, I would like to allow you a sneak peek into my newest research project. And you see this seems to be slightly different than the other slides, and it also has a digital angle. This is why I also chosen this one. So my colleague, Dr. Prakriti Mukherjee, and myself are looking at how you can also use a digital means in order to enhance marketplace literacy in an emerging market. Marketplace literacy is very important because obviously it helps individuals to make better informed decisions when they are buying something. And it is something that they are going to buy in our setting are human-wildlife conflict insurances. So we are in the context of microinsurance, new product development or new service development, emerging markets. This is why the tiger is there, because obviously human-wildlife conflict occurs when people and animals meet too often and compete for space and food. And this is an extremely difficult terrain, if I may put it that way, because obviously wild animals are on the one hand dangerous, on the other hand side, however, many are endangered species. So using digital means, for instance, through smartphones or laptops, videos, audios, and different type of simulation games. To sum up, what I hope the learning outcomes for today are, I hope I showed you a couple of examples on how digitalization tackles every stage of the NPD process. It also encompasses different types of sources, development tools, or communication media. I guess the latter are the kind of most obvious first coming to our minds. I hope I showed a couple of examples for the others as well. Digitalization, again, plays a role across different market segments and geographies. And I also hope especially the last example of the human-wildlife conflict insurance showcases that. That would be it on my end. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking very much forward to a hopefully lively discussion. Thank you once more.
Thank you, Anna. It was so fascinating. I definitely have some questions, but we'll go to the group first. So just a reminder to everyone, do please pop your questions into the Q&A box. They'll pop up, and if you like someone else's question as well, you can indicate that, and we'll work our way through. So keep them coming in as we're talking, and we'll work our way through those. Anna, just to start, we've had a question from Georgina. She has asked you, where is the border between the concept development and prototype development stages, particularly when dealing with a fully digital product? So she's given the example of a health mobile app. I think she's interested in the boundaries there.
Well, when it's digital, I guess it could be a little bit more fluid, if I may put it that way, especially as prototyping might become also a little bit cheaper. Prototyping also in the digital sphere is not necessarily always digital. I mean, if you use the example of an app, if I understood that correctly, a prototype would be even a very kind of small sketch on a piece of paper, potentially showcasing what kind of functionalities this app has. And potentially something like this could be, I agree with you, done also in the very early stage, the concept development stage. I guess it is important here to say that it is a concept of how to develop products. It is shown, though, that companies that do follow certain steps tend to be more successful than those who just do something, if I may put it that way. So I guess the notion here, even though it comes more from the physical and manufacturing space, if I may put it like this, the general notion is that you think about activities and you think about a certain sequence of activities. And you also think about what kind of activities should be completed, that you can check the virtual or physical boxes in order to move to the next stage. Usually the division between concept and prototype development stage would have been actually going from the idea stage into also something physical, where you tend to develop something physical. And that was a very important stage, because usually when you started developing something, it became much more costly in order to do mock-ups or prototypes and then test them with certain, let's say, lead users or first adopters. If it becomes digital, then it probably becomes a little bit more blurred. Nevertheless, I would still kind of at least highlight this aspect of thinking about the steps, the sequence, and also thinking a little bit what has to be done first in order to move to the next stage. Though obviously, especially in digital, it might be also a little bit more circular. You may come back to a previous stage, maybe not always at high costs.
Thank you, Anna. That's really, really interesting. We've had a second question actually as well from Bobby. Bobby said, thank you for a fascinating chat. He's also said he'd really like to understand how digital marketing for children's products and services works. So, for example, how much of the marketing is targeted to children and how much to their parents? And then when marketing to parents, he's asked to follow up and said, what are the key things to think about when developing or advertising new products there? So is that something you can speak to for us?
That's a fascinating topic. And by coincidence, and this is really coincidence, we didn't make up this question before. In my last academic year, or this very academic year, I'm talking last academic year because the teaching, at least at King's, in most programs have ended. In digital marketing communications, which I was teaching, I set up a virtual debate with my students about advertising to children. Or in that case, it was obviously digital advertising to children because the program and the module have been digital marketing. And we discussed very lively if it's ethical or not to direct advertising directly to children. And I guess it is a kind of difficult topic, and it depends a little bit on kind of which perspective you take. And if you think who's responsible, if I may put it that way. And I guess some of my students were saying it is the parents' responsibility to filter, if I may put it that way, what their children are supposed to see, if I may say it that way. Others were more into the notion that there is a certain responsibility, let's say, of the manufacturer or service provider in order to be responsible for what are they saying to whom, and especially right now within the debate, maybe about also how we should look like or what we should do or shouldn't do, and especially to young people, what kind of pictures are you showing, let's say, as those influencing potentially their shopping behavior, because we are talking here mostly about advertising. In the UK, I think, and also in Germany, to some extent, there was also, or some students coming from these countries also had an interesting view on this, because there might be some regulators. I think the ADA in the UK, for instance, is an example of a regulator looking into what is being advertised to children and how. And the question of how ethical it is, or what kind of messages are shared. And sometimes I think if you are interested, you can easily find it on the internet, for instance, what cases have been brought about. The manufacturer, for instance, of sweets. I don't want to name specific brand names here, but it's easy to kind of find it out about sweets or fat content, or about proportions, for instance, of let's say healthy and less healthy ingredients, and which of them are focused on in these advertisements, because this is a little bit the point of view. I think also in the UK or in London, it's banned to advertise stuff to children which is unhealthy in public transportation, if I can recall it, and also I think in the vicinity of schools. But I guess there is no final opinion on this, who should limit it and to what extent should you expose children at some point in time, or maybe older children, to make informed choices. We already had this notion. Today, you can probably only learn to be an informed consumer also by kind of being able to make choices. I hope this answers your question, but if not, please feel free to, again, virtually contest my answer.
Thank you, Anna. I guess I'm interested as well. It feels like there's more and more discussion about issues like this. Is that your sense as well? It's more of a topic of discussion than perhaps it would have been in the past.
I do believe so, because I think it also comes, but this is my personal opinion, it also comes from the direction of, in general, more talking about, how we should look like, how we look like, how we would like to look like. Also, I think a lot of pressure coming from all the social media. I think we live in times where there are a lot of influencers of every kind. And I think the pressure is growing on especially younger people to kind of deal with it, if I may put it like this. And maybe also with digitalization, there also tends to be other options to kind of at least bring it to the attention of regulatory bodies, or at least marking it somehow that the content, for instance, might be difficult, or parents could have a look before they show it to children. But I think the whole societal discussion about certain topics is much more underway than it has been just 15 or 20 years ago. And I think this is part of it.
Yeah, thank you. We have another question, change of topic and direction now. And I don't know how sort of how expert you are in this area. We may have another.
We will see.
We will. So Camilla has asked, what do you believe the future of fully automated automobiles will be? And do you have research on this product, or are you interested in that area of technology, or colleagues indeed, I guess? Do you know of any other work at King's?
Fully
automated automobiles specifically is what she's asked about, but I guess maybe widen it out as well to other products.
I mean, I'm not an expert. I think it's fair to say it right away. I'm personally not doing research on this kind of autonomous cars, for instance, if this is going into this direction, and also maybe the marketing perspective here would look like at it, how you market it, or maybe also what kind of other perks and advantages they potentially could bring about for their users, or maybe for the employers of the users. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. But unfortunately, I guess I'm not doing research here, and I'm also not spontaneously thinking of a colleague of mine, a close colleague of mine, who would be particularly interesting in this paradigm change, and how this may impact consumption, for instance, or also the division between leisure time, maybe working time. But a fascinating topic, I also could imagine, related somehow to what we are experiencing all together right now with working remotely or working from home, and also certain division of when we work and maybe where we have leisure time. Because I could imagine an autonomously driving car, some of us might be also tempted work already.
It's like the old school chauffeur back in the day when you were a very high-powered businessman or woman. You get the new version.
Yeah.
Interesting idea.
Like I didn't experience it yet.
I suspect you're right. It's probably not far away, is it? Thank you, Anna. I can't think of any colleagues either, actually, who are working in this area. I know we have people thinking about these problems at King's, but I'll have a think on that.
Maybe there's also something at the engineering school. Again, I'm just thinking out loud.
Yes, I think they're
engineering
involved in
school, so potentially someone interested there in that topic as well.
Yeah, definitely. We've had another question from Dean, really interesting one, actually. I think you've alluded to some of this already. He said, has there been a noticeable reduction in audience attention span in the digital age? And does that need to be factored in when creating digital marketing? I'm very interested to hear your answer here.
I probably can only speak about the service I'm offering, which is education. And if we kind of, consider education or a lecture that I'm giving as a product or a service to a clearly defined target audience, in that case, it would be all of you who are virtually here, or in another setting, simply my students in a module that I'm teaching. And the question is, how long can I keep their attention span? And if I feel that, or this is how I'm interpreting it, or if I feel there is a difference to their attention span, let's say in a face-to-face lecture theater. Partially, I find it difficult to assess because I'm not always seeing, for instance, my students in the digital sphere. I'm seeing them obviously in the classroom when they are sitting in front of me. And I guess being seen or observed plays a certain role here on how we behave and if we pay attention more or less, or we feel we should at least do as if we pay attention. When I'm not seeing them, this is obviously a little bit more difficult for me to assess what they are actually up to. But coming maybe closer to your question, I do feel it is a little bit more difficult to get the attention of my audience digitally. I have the impression that you really have to chunk the content up much more. In that case, an exercise, for instance, it has to be shorter. It has to be much more to the point in order to allow students an active participation and also an involved participation. So I do think that it's becoming more difficult. Also because there are so many other options to do just at arm's length. So yes, I guess we have to compete for attention and become even better lecturers then.
He's just followed up and said thank you and sort of reflected back to you and said, he thinks targeting to the audience and chunking the quality content is key. I think that's he agrees with what you were saying there, which I think I agree with you. I think we've seen that across the board, haven't we, in the education area? Just how you organise the information for people seems to be becoming very important. Wonder if we could finish actually, Anna, with maybe a personal question, if I may. You gave us a sneak peek of your exclusive research, which was really fascinating. And I wonder if I would be interested, and the group would be interested in sort of how you and your colleagues choose your research projects and you explore. How do you go about that process?
Well, I think that in generally speaking, I'm in a very lucky position because I'm being paid for my hobby. If I'm kind of overstretching it a little bit, this is for sure the kind of nice part of being an academic, that you can, in many instances, choose the project, the research. I'm talking mostly about research here, research project you are working at. Obviously, it's also a little bit about, there is some competition for sure for good ideas or good papers, that's the currency, if I may put it like this, in my job. And also the question how good the fit is between the research idea. And we talked about several trends already. And obviously, if you kind of happen to bring them together and the timing is right, then it's even better. But personally, I think it is key that one does something that you really like because you enjoy it. And research is also relatively cumbersome, lengthy, and sometimes even lonely because it's your project and you are the only one pushing it forward. I guess I don't have a secret sauce here, but what I try to do is run around with an open mind, reading quite a lot, also business press, I must admit, because there are often interesting views, interviews, or descriptions of what companies do or organizations in more general terms. And for me personally, it is important to choose something that does have a practical application. So it's not only research for the sake of research in an ivory tower, but it does have some implications also for the world outside. And I think this provides good ideas, reading, and also thinking of, how different type of marketing concepts in my case also do change over time and in different contexts. And I think from one project to the other, sometimes new doors open. So sometimes it's a difficult question, which door you choose and where you go.
Too much choice, yes.
That's always tricky.
Yes, I can imagine. I'm obviously not allowed to have favourites in my job, but I do think that the marketing area, you guys have such a fascinating range of things you can look at. I think it's a really nice space to be working in. I'm going to squeeze in one last question, actually. We've had one final one come from the group, so I'd love to answer it because we have a bit of time. So again, many thanks for the presentation. The question is around ethical boundaries. So what are the ethical boundaries in the development of new or maybe not so new digital products? And they're asking, does creativity always beat ethical considerations? Or is it more complex than that? And they were thinking about the advert that you showed in particular, and this idea of bringing back the dead. Is the creativity there always the winner, or what do you feel about that? Do you have a view?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if we kind of confine it, or if I confine my answer to this notion of resurrecting, if I may use the word, at least digitally, people who are no longer alive. We have observed this in the last years. I mean, this Audrey Hepburn advertisement is just an example, but if you're interested, you will find ideas of new films with James Dean, for instance, or also other personalities from the past. And I guess this is a very difficult topic because obviously the person involved cannot longer say anything about this. And I think also, especially if you take people who are longer dead, they may not have thought about using their image a couple of decades later, because when they were alive, that was not a topic. So then it is, I guess, difficult to kind of judge their opinion about this. What one can do, and I guess some companies are doing, is try to reach out to the heirs of that person and discuss it with them. I guess there are better and worse outcomes here, but that is an option. Another option, even though it is, some of us may have different feelings about it, sometimes it's the question who possesses the kind of image rights to a certain personality, to certain pictures. And I guess then from the kind of at least formal perspective, the question is answered if someone simply possesses the rights to use the image of someone for certain, I don't know, commercial applications. I guess in the end, we can judge with our purses. And this is also a kind of, I think, very applicable aspect of it. I mean, in the end, talking about chocolates or this type of advertisement, I mean, if we like it, and I mean, we as consumers, then probably we will buy it, because it will appeal to us, or at least to certain market segments who may have experienced a certain actress long ago and associated with their youth and have generally a good feeling and don't know today's stars so well. And if we consider it ethically questionable, if I may use that phrasing, then I guess a very efficient way of showing it in that case is simply not buying it.
Yes, that's very true. We all have power, don't we, as a consumer? Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but that makes perfect sense. And I think, as you said as well, the social media aspect these days as well, you can get a very instant reaction to something, can't you? So really interesting. Thank you so much, Anna. I think that's absolutely fascinating. If I may, I'm just going to actually segue into something related. So obviously had the honour of emceeing for today, which is fantastic, but also actually it's nice for me to have the opportunity in my role to talk to you all as alumni. And Anna's actually just taught on one of our executive education programs. So there's a bit of a link here, because something that I just wanted to take this sort of just 2-3 minutes to talk to you about is sharing with you that we are doing more and more executive education. And for some of you who graduated from us a while ago, that may not be something that you actually know. So obviously you all experienced a fantastic undergraduate and postgraduate experience with King's, which I hope you remember fondly. I'm just trying to leap into where we are here on the screen. Can you guys see that? Louise is nodding. Excellent. Thank you. So really what we wanted to do just very briefly is kind of make that connection. You've all come back today to watch Anna talk about a topic because you're very keen on, continuous lifelong learning and the new insights that come out of the business school. And so I think it's really nice to mention to you all that we're building our executive education provision at the the school as well. And it's something I want to encourage you all to be aware of and know about, in case today and others have whet your appetite to learn more, and to bear us in mind for future. So excuse me a moment, I just want to move us along. There we go. I don't really need to tell you too much about this, because you all know King's already, but obviously you know how fantastic we are and how fantastic the work people like Anna is. And you know that we're excellent at research, and we engage with many organisations, and we're all about creating this value for society and business. So, you know, a reminder, you know that already, and I'm sure you've told people, but kind of what we're seeking to do now with our executive education is bring that insight and research and expertise to a more experienced audience. So those who've come through programs and you know, maybe after a few years of working and management experience want to come back and continue to learn. And the thing I'd really like to say as well is, as alumni of the business school and King's College, you would get a discount with us as well. So it's not something that people know a lot about at the moment. And so I really just wanted to make people aware. I'll mention in a moment a couple of things that might be particularly interesting to you. And I think the other thing I'd like to say as well is, you know, we're very, very keen to talk to you about your needs. So if you want, Michelle is one of our client relationship managers, and she's fantastically experienced. She's worked with executives for a long time. So if you're thinking that you or your team or your organization might need to, you know, access some of our expertise or courses, or want to do some more learning, she'd be really happy to have a conversation with you about that, and to just talk about what King's is able to do, how we can connect you with people like Anna and others, and share that expertise more. I think it's also really interesting to let you know that we do work with organisations as well. So I know you've all gone to work in fantastic places, or maybe never stop. Perhaps if you're a part-time student, you've been working all the way through. And we've been doing more and more work as a college and as a business school with some really interesting organisations, and we can very much tailor what we do. So if you're thinking about, you know, something that your team or organisation might need, perhaps something about new product development, and you're interested in exploring those ideas further, again, it's something we can do. So I do want to sort of, you know, alert you to the fact that we have those services and abilities within the business school, and really just give you something to kind of think on, and hopefully you'll think of us when you're thinking about your team and learning and development in the future. I'm just briefly going to mention just a couple of things that might whet your appetite. You can find out much more information about these on the website. We're actually running at the end of this month, and again in November, a 4-day leadership and people management program. So if you lead teams, or if you're looking to kind of step up from one role to another, and you think you want a bit of a refresher or some new experiences, we do have a course around that, and it's a very popular one and something you might be interested in. And it includes a fantastic experiential workshop, so you'll actually kind of get to live the experience of some difficult leadership experiences in a very safe way, and explore those further. I mentioned earlier, Anna's just taught on one of our programs. We have a strategic marketing management program. So I would expect many of you here are experts already in marketing. I'm sure many of you were Anna's students, perhaps, you know, recently or further ago, or with the marketing department. So you will be very, very well educated already in this area. But we do have this program that looks to keep looking at the future. So, you know, over the next few years, you may well want to think about coming back for a refresher, or thinking about some new ideas. And again, I'd you know, love to let you know that we are here. The next version of this program is going to be running in the spring next year. So that's something for you to know about. And the final thing I just wanted to mention was we also have very, very short, accessible things. So obviously we're in a virtual world these days, and we have virtual executive masterclasses. They're 3 hours, and they're very small group workshops where you'll come and explore a business challenge or need. So, you know, the next 2 coming up this month, still open for applications, are decision making. I think it's something we all have to do all the time, and managing strategic change. And again, you know, I'm being slightly glib, but I think this year has been a year of strategic change. So if these topics are interesting to you as well, I did want to let you know they're there, and, you know, taught by fantastic colleagues of Anna from the business school faculty, and they are there as well. So that's my couple of minutes of plugging. You can find everything about us on the website, and, you know, I hope as people who are interested in your development and having spent time listening today, it's the kind of thing that it's useful for you to know about for the future. Louise is very kindly going to share the information. So if you'd like to click on the links when you get that email, then you will be able to. So that was just my final piece, if I may, hijacking Anna's, just to let you know about our burgeoning business within the business school. Thank you, Louisa. I can see you've just popped it in the chat. You're a star. So I think we're coming to a close. We don't have any other additional questions, and we are coming up to 9:30. So we probably need to let everyone get back to work and get back to her day, marking research, whatever you're up to today, Anna. But a huge thank you, Anna. It's been fascinating. I've learned a lot, and I think we can tell from the questions that people were really engaged. So thank you for giving us your insights and sharing your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure. I hope some small inspiration on product development or just a kind of energetic start into the new day, so that those of you who are less familiar keep running around right now and search for digital new product development around you. Thank you for your time also on my end, and who knows, maybe we see each other virtually or face-to-face in Bush House, be it a workshop or be it also a guest lecture, because I'm usually hunting for managers who would be interested in sharing a little bit of their experience with kind of their younger colleagues or current students. So if you are open to this work in the marketing field or new product development and open to this, please always feel free to let me know. It's easy to find out more contacts, and I'm very happy to accommodate you also within my teaching. Students are usually fascinated if they can also learn something from managers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Anna. You're getting lots of thank yous and praise in the chat. You can look at that moment. You're brilliant. So, and same to Louisa as well. Louisa, shall I pass back to you? Is there anything you want?
I just want to thank you both, Kate and Anna, for the fantastic time. It was so interesting, and also like all the description of the executive education opportunities. And I want to thank also all the participants for your engagement with us. And I will be sending over more information about the recording later during the week.
Thanks, Louisa. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Bye, everyone.